So at this point, we're going to start making everything look a lot more three-dimensional. So you might have thought we were done, but we're not. We're going to make this drawing look a whole lot more realistic starting from now. So we're going to get some of this Van Dyke brown and a straight edge. And I'm going to flip my ruler over so that it's right on top of my paper, because my ruler has this stuff that lifts it off the paper a little bit, this cork layer. Dark brown line using the Van Dyke brown right underneath this piece of crown molding, which is like a little decorative strip of wood at the top of the wall. And it just shows the underside of that piece of molding. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the crown molding on this side here, just to make it kind of stand out a little bit more and look a little bit more three-dimensional. And you could use your ruler to help you just draw a nice thin dark brown line right underneath here. And then you can move the ruler slightly down to make the line a little thicker on the left side here, because the line should get a little bit thicker as you go toward the left. As the piece of molding gets closer, it should get a little wider. I just realized something, in that we didn't color in the molding over here, and we also did not shade the side of the foot of this dresser right here. So I'm going to just press a little harder with this burnt sienna, and then I'm going to go ahead and use some of this Van Dyke brown and mix that in with the burnt sienna to create a darker brown on the inside of that leg to make it look more three-dimensional. Okay, I'm going to use some of this burnt sienna here on this piece of trim against the wall here. This is called the baseboard trim, and this little piece right over here too. So I'm going to try to put a little shadow on the underside of this little piece right here, and a little shadow on the lower half of this little wider piece of trim, and then try to shade it and fade it up. Just give it a little dimension. And then leave the top a little lighter color. So maybe I'm going to put a little bit of yellow ochre to lighten that up a little bit there. So just give it a little bit of dimension. Okay. So there's always so much to be done. So what I'm going to do with this piece of wood is I'm going to take my Van Dyke brown, and I'm going to do a dark to light this way transition and tone with this piece of furniture. Okay, so I am going to go from dark to light. With my dark brown, and it's going to push the color a little darker. And then I'm also going to do, let's do dark to light this way. From this upper corner here, just put a very, very light amount of pressure on this side, because this is supposed to be a slightly lighter side than this side, and just do it right over, remember this cubby hole, don't touch that yet. Just do that to the upper part right here where the drawer is, and you could spread it down a little bit on this side and across and fade. Do a little fade. You could put a little bit of shading at the top behind the vase and then fade it to the front edge. Put a little bit of shading underneath this little doily here, just like a little shadow, and then fade it this way. And let's talk about that doily. Let's just make that a cream color doily. So I'm just going to grab my a cream colored pencil and just fill that in. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my bark brown and just kind of make the back of the doily slightly darker, just slightly darker, and then have that dark fade as it comes around to the front of the doily, the front edge. Put a little shading on that too. Everything should be shaded. Okay, now put a little bit of that darker brown right here on the tip of this little triangle. That's the side of wall of the inside of this cubby hole. And then as you come out, just fade it. Fade by adding a little less pressure as you come out. Little less, little less, little less. Okay, just put a little bit of shading on this surface too, the flat horizontal surface here. Okay, put a little bit of shading on the underside of each of these little spherical portions of the legs or the feet of this furniture. And on the kind of a little bit to the right of center, put a little coarse shadow also. You can put a little bit of yellow ochre to warm up the color of the legs, and a little yellow ochre on the front of this piece of furniture. It's looking a little pale, right? Just make it a little richer in color by adding a little yellow ochre to that, because you don't want it to look grayish brown. Warm it up a little bit. Oh, much better. Put some over here too. A little bit warmer. Warm it up a little bit. Warm it up a little bit. Okay. Now with this lamp, with this very, very flat looking greenish lamp, what you could do is pick a dark green. And I'm going to use, let's see what would be a good dark green here. Olive green, not so. This is such a brilliant green. I'm going to try Viridian. That's like a blue green. I don't know if that's much darker. Just my warm gray. You might say, what does warm gray have to do with green? And I'm going to just create a shade color with the green that's already on there. Here's my warm gray. So I'm just going to make right under the top horizontal part of that vase, which is right here, I'm going to put a little bit of a coarse shadow. And I'm just going to go right over the orangey red leaves and everything. Just put a coarse shadow right there. Remember the shoulder, this vase has like shoulders that come out on either side, they bump out. So just make that coarse shadow a little wavy. Follow that shape. And as I go to the left, I'm going to press a little less hard on my gray colored pencil. Now watch this. I'm going to create a shadow right here from the lamp. Going to go to 2 points on either end of the base, and I'm going to create 2 slanted lines that go toward this little edge here. Make the line slanted, but a little bit more horizontal than that. And I want you to layer the warm gray right over the existing color, right over everything. Okay, you'll still see what's under that shadow. So what we're going to create here is a cast shadow. And if you've ever seen a shadow crawling down and across like some cement steps, or the steps in front of the museum or anything like that, you know how the shadow goes down and across and down and across? We're going to have the shadow go more vertical right here on this surface, and then have it be a little bit darker by pressing hard and then fading that shadow away. Okay, I might want to mix that with a little bit of Van Dyke brown. Try to make it go a little bit darker, because this is supposed to be like the dark side of the piece of furniture, on this side right here, and then just have it fade. Wow, now I have a cast shadow on there. Look at that. Look at that. So with my warm gray, look what I'm going to do next. From the bottom of the foot right over here to wherever you think the bottom of the other foot on this piece of furniture on the other corner of the bed would be, I want you to draw a very, very faint gray line, just light enough so that you can see it. Okay? Then from the bottom of the mattress to that line, I want you to create a shadow by layering this warm gray color over this beautiful kind of blue-green aqua color. And have it go really, really dark at the top, right underneath this box spring or whatever that is, frame for the bed, and then fade as you come toward that bottom line that you very, very lightly drew in. So what that represents here is the shadow under the bed, and that will really make the bed pop out. Like, just make it look so much more realistic. And from here to here as well, I'm going to draw a little slanted line and then create a shadow under the bed by pressing really hard with my warm gray and then kind of fading it as I come toward that line. All right, look at that. Now you have a shadow under that bed, and it makes such a huge difference. Let's do a shadow from the bottom of this foot to this foot. If you don't have to draw a guideline, but it helps if you want. And then press really hard with a warm gray, just right over the color that's already on there, and then fade as you come close to that line. Same thing right over here. You'll notice that part of this table is over the rug, part of it's over the wooden floor. It doesn't matter. You're going to start putting that shade color right over all those colors. And then as you come toward the bottom of each of these furniture feet, you're just going to fade it. If you want to just keep it real strong, that's fine. I think it's fine. It's going to read as a shadow. Wow, look at that. Now you got a cast shadow under that piece of furniture. If you want to put a little cast shadow on the back of this book, you know, the shadow from the top part of this piece of furniture, go ahead. Put a little bit of warm gray on that too. It's not going to hurt anything to put that in the dark and mix that in with the darker values. And it'll tone it down so it doesn't look so bright and cartoonish. All right, we're going to put a little cast shadow right here on the bottom. So just kind of create what you would think is the vanishing point line from the bottom of the foot here and across to the lower left. And let's put a cast shadow right here on the bottom of this dresser, and you'll see how much more realistic and three-dimensional it's going to look after you do that. Wow, look at that. That definitely reads like a shadow. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to create a shadow for this kind of lime green. And because I feel like the rug also needs to be three-dimensional. So you know what? I'm going to create a shadow by grabbing a moss green or even an olive green. I think I'll go with an olive green. This is olive green. And I want to make this rug here look a little bit three-dimensional by showing the thickness of the rug. The rug just looks like a flat sticker just on the floor. Just looks flat. There's no dimension, no life. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a really thin line as it comes around this little corner here. A really thin line in the olive. And then continue that thin line. You can make it slightly thicker now. Just make it a little bit thicker as you come toward the center of the paper. And what you're showing is kind of like the edge of the rug. The rug, how thick the rug is, how thick the pile of the rug is. When you buy a rug, one of the questions they're going to ask you is, how thick do you want the pile? Like, how thick do you want the fibers of the rug to stand out? And that's the same way with carpeting. If it's the type of rug that's made like a piece of carpeting, the way that you have these little vertical pieces of yarn sticking straight up, if it's that type of rug, the question is going to be, how thick is that rug? What is the pile of that rug? Okay, some rugs are not made like that. They're like woven, like tapestries. Then that's a different type of rug, and they're not going to ask you that question because it's made in a different way. Okay, but this type of rug I'm going to say is like a carpet. It's got like a thickness to it. So give it like an edge and create an edge by using a darker green, like an olive green would be nice to show the edge of this rug. Now I ran out of room here because it's like the border of the rug is, the rest of it is off the paper, so you don't have to do anything now. Now with the trunk here, the trunk is on the floor. It is not suspended up on, it's not sitting up on these legs like this, so it's kind of a different situation. So what I'm going to do is show you how to do the shadow here with that warm gray once again. Okay, so you know what? Here it is. So I'm going to line up my ruler with this long edge right here, the bottom of the length of this trunk. And extend that line, continue that line to the lower right hand side. And that's going to represent like the one side of my shadow. Move your ruler up to this corner right here on the other side, and you can draw a parallel line. Or you could slightly flare the line out a little bit like that. And that's going to be one shadow. We are going to do something really cool, which is a double shadow, because we have light from this window casting a shadow and light from this window casting a shadow in the opposite direction. Or not say opposite, you know, this other direction. Depending on the light source, if you have like 3 light sources or 3 flashlights shining on an object, you're going to have more than 1, 2, or you're going to have 3 shadows. You're definitely going to have multiple shadow situations. So that's what I'm creating over here. I'm going to put the ruler right up to the base on this side and extend that line to the lower left. I'm going to do the same thing, go to the corner right over here and create a parallel line, or a line that actually flares out a little bit as it goes outward. All right, from that corner. So between those 2 lines here and from here to here, I'm going to use this warm gray right over the existing color, and then I'm going to fade it out. Okay, I'm going to move this over because I think I have some little bumps or stickers or something underneath, and that's going to interfere with my shading. So as I come out, I am just going to fade that shadow out. It's one of the kinds of shadows that just like disappear and fade out. Same thing here. I'm going to press pretty hard near the base with my warm gray, and then as I come out, I just want that warm gray to fade out. So now I'm going to go from dark to light out this way. And I'm going to try to blend these little dark lines on the side, because shadows shouldn't have outlines, right? So I'm going to try to blend those away into my shading. Okay. All right. All right, so now it's starting to get there. We're getting some really, really dramatic shadows. If you want to go a little bit darker, pick an even darker gray and put that right near, right where the darkest part of the shadow would start, like right underneath this little box spring or bed frame. Okay, if you have something that's brightly colored and you don't like the color, you just feel like it needs to be toned down, then take your warm gray and just throw it down over the existing color, and it will make it look like it's a little bit more of a realistic depiction of that color. Remember, when these kind of brightly colored pieces of furniture are in an actual room and then they're photographed, they're never super bright, as in like product photos where there's all these lights coming from all different directions directly on them to give the most possible, most beautiful, vibrant depiction of the light. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm shaking the camera. So they're going to have more shadow and they're going to be more dull colored. So I'm going to, right where we did the transition in tone, I'm just going to also layer on this warm gray. Just real quick, just layer it on to just bring the color intensity down just a little bit to give it a more realistic look in a room setting. Because a room is like putting something on the inside of a box that has some holes in it. If it has windows, it's not going to be bright and vibrant as in like product shots of something before you go and buy something. You might want to check it out. It's never going to be as bright as that. Right under the opening for the lid, let's make the opening for the lid just a little bit darker. You can use the warm gray, or you could use the magenta color or maroon color, whatever was the darkest color there, and mix that in with the warm gray. Okay, just so that the opening, like the little crack in the opening for the lid, doesn't just disappear and fade too much. Okay, now that looks a little bit more toned down and it doesn't look so candy colored and fake. All right, this yellow orange blanket is definitely going to have some of this rug color and some of this wall color reflecting up into it. So one of the things I didn't demonstrate to you was this, how colors reflect on each other. So for this little side exercise, I want you to grab a red colored pencil, the truest red you can find in your set, and a green colored pencil. Whatever they are saying is green, just basic green. So I have grass green. Here we go. So I have green and I have red. All right. So what I'm going to do is on the left side, I'm going to draw a green ball. I'm not going to say a circle. I'm going to say a green ball or a green sphere. And on the right, I'm going to try to get them about even, like around the same size. A little red ball like that. Close enough. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade them so that they look three-dimensional. So on the red ball, I'm going to draw a little core shadow. You know, it looks like a little crescent moon. And then to the right, I'm going to just press slightly to create a lighter reflected light area. And then on the underside here and to the left, I'm going to create a light middle tone, lighter middle tones, and then just keep going up into the upper left. I'm going to just leave like a really light area that's going to represent the highlight. Okay, so let me go ahead and make the core shadow just a little darker. Okay, and then create a little smoother shading here for the midtones. Okay, something like that. All right. Same thing with the green. Let's create a core shadow that's shaped like a little crescent moon. And then press much lighter for reflected light. And then a little bit lighter to create the midtone. And like somewhere right here on the upper left, create a highlight that's going to be white. Okay. And just I'm going to smooth my shading just a little bit. All right, like that. Smooth my midtones. Now what I'm going to do is create some shadows. So on the lower right hand side, I'm going to create a shadow with the green. Press really, really hard. So let's say that this was a white table. I'm just going to use a green. On a white table, the shadow is going to be green tinted. The shadow, the color of the actual object will reflect onto a white table, and the shadow is going to be greenish. For the red object, the shadow is going to be reddish on a white table. I'm going to press really, really hard with my red pencil for the umbra, or the darkest part of the shadow, so that the shadow doesn't become like a part of the ball itself. It looks like a separate thing, so you need to add some contrast there. So make it really, really dark, and then fade it lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, like that. Now this is everything that we already did at the beginning of the year. So if you never did this, well, then you're going to be confused because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So I would go back and do that exercise. If you do not know how to do this, you should already have that skill. Because everything in my class builds, the skills build one on top of the other. So if you skipped lesson 1, then you can't go on to lesson 2 or 3 because you will not know what we're talking about. Okay? So this was from the shading of the sphere, the value, and using value to shade the sphere. We did that during first marking period. I'm going to take the warm gray and I'm going to mix that in with the green for the shadow and then fade that out as well. And that will make the shadow look more realistic. Same here, I'm going to mix the warm gray with the red and then make it really, really dark right underneath the sphere. And then as I go out, I'm going to fade it out. And I'm going to just shape this sphere a little bit with the eraser because it looks a little wonky because I was rushing. But this is just an exercise. The main thing here that I went, through all of this to show you is how colors also reflect on each other. So this green sphere is going to reflect green into the red ball, and the red is going to reflect its color red onto the green ball. So let's go ahead and very, very lightly on the left side, very, very lightly, put a little bit of green. Just put like a little crescent shaped, moon shaped green reflected color right over the red ball on the left side, and then just fade it as you go to the right. That's what I'm talking about. And then right here on the left side where the green ball is, I want you to put a little bit of this red and then fade that from the right side here as you go around to the left. Okay? So not only do you have to shade, you have to kind of think about also how the colors reflect onto each other, because in real life that also happens, as well as there being shading. So, okay, so let's do a little bit of that to this, to the bed here. So what we're going to do is try to find that beautiful, kind of beautiful aqua color that we were using. Okay, so that was the cerulean blue. That wasn't the cerulean blue. I wanted more of this greenish color. So where was that? What was that? Maybe it was a combination of different colors. That looks a little bit different. It wasn't brilliant emerald. Was it emerald? No, but that's not bad. We could use that as well. Let's use that. Let's just try one more color. Viridian. I have a feeling that's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. Viridian. So we're going to use some of this Viridian. And we are going to very lightly put it over the gray part of this bed frame right here. And just change that gray to a grayish aqua green. Okay, put that in there. Put a little bit of that over here on this side as well. So we're just showing the influence of that color throughout from the floor, because that is definitely going to, bounce up in there. We're also going to put some of that on this side of the blanket. Just a very, very, very light touch. Just a very light touch. Just to be realistic, because this is something that you may never have thought of when you were just shading. You thought, okay, orange blanket, I'm just going to use orange. And that's it. End of story. No, that's not the end of the story. You're going to have other colors bouncing up in there. Bouncing up in there. Put that in there. And also put some of this Viridian. You can put a little stronger, whatever you want. You want to put that also a little bit on this side, just a little bit. But what do you see over here right below this orange blanket? You see this kind of beautiful magenta colored trunk. So I'm going to grab some of that magenta and we're going to throw it up in here too, over this orange. Wow. There's some interesting things going on here now. Now, how about the top right here? What colors would bounce up in there? The wall color. So that is that very beautiful light blue color. So I'm going to just take some of this Smyrna blue and just put that and layer that right over the orange. I don't know what it's going to do, but I have a feeling that it's going to kind of calm down the orange color, because blue and orange are opposite colors and they create a neutral. So they neutralize each other. They create like a muddy, grayish, greenish color. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not. It just kind of tones down the color, makes it look a little less, vibrant. But it also kind of makes it look more real, like more real looking under realistic lighting conditions. So I actually put a real subtle layer of this light blue over this blanket here. It's just barely noticeable, but it's in there. I know that it's in there. Okay?